finally blaming the person we've been blaming all this time when everybody's been calling us a bunch of ists and phobes for not liking the new Lady Dr. Wham and Dr. Lady Wham and Who person. I mean, how many times can we say that we don't like the way the show is being written and ran? Hello everyone, I'm Mecha. I am your favorite YouTube consumer advocate harpy. I have no idea where some of those little ranty rumblies come from, but they just flow right out of the top of my brain. So we go with them. I don't rehearse them, I don't say them or script them. They just go. It's like I'm possessed by whatever I'm possessed by, and that's who's telling you to subscribe here. That's why you're here on my channel of actual nonconformist punk rock, where we don't go with the crowd and follow the herd. We don't recite back the NPC bullshit. And one of the things that a lot of the NPCs have been saying and reciting back about the new Lady Wham and Dr. Karen Who person is the fact that, oh, you just don't like women. Which is not true. That's never been the case. Many of us were actually excited to see what they would do with a woman. Many of us were of the impression that maybe right now in the modern day of wokeifying everything in the name of diversity and nothing else, reducing everybody to a label and a stereotype might not be the best time for it. They should have done it, 20 years ago. Probably. I mean, they've already had female Time Lords, but no, now they're finally realizing that we've been saying, blame the showrunner, blame Chinballs himself. Oh yeah, now Screen Rant is doing it too. Jodie Whittaker deserves better than Chinballs Doctor Who. Why do I say Chinballs? Because I am very dyslexic and I cannot say Chibnall without stumbling and stuttering. And you know what happens every time I stumble and stutter?
True international effort to pressure.
We get a Joe Biden moment. We get a clip. And that's a terrible thing. Jodie is a fantastic doctor, but was failed by a showrunner who seemed to have no clear idea as what he wanted to do with the show. That's part of it. That's part of it. They didn't seem to have any direction. There was a lot of wandering around aimlessly, calling to each other very slowly in the dark for hours. There was a lot of nothing going on. It was very boring and slow. And it took itself way too seriously. It was way too overly dramatic. There was no fun. And life in the show. You need some life in Doctor Who. You need a reason to want to go on the journey with the Doctor. Instead, Lady Dr. Wham and Who felt like going to the playground with your mother and your grandfather because you have to. Because you can't be left alone for whatever reason. I don't know why. And you gotta be dragged along. And you don't want to because you're just too old for that crap. You're just too old for it, and it's boring, and you'd rather be doing anything else. You'd rather be playing Pokemon or anything. Chris Chimball's tenure as the Doctor Who showrunner has been a glorious failure. They're admitting it! Oh! And Jodie Whittaker deserved much better. The time of the first female doctor was unfortunately defined by erratic plotting. See, at least they're finally admitting it. They're not just saying, oh, you're a bunch of ists and phobes. With a premiere season that lacked clear direction, and a sophomore season that radically changed the nature of the show, ironically, Chimballs accomplished this by trying to tie the newer season of Doctor Who more firmly to the mythology of the classic series. By undoing it! When you're undoing it, you're just telling me that all these doctors that I memorized the names and the numbers of, and all of these plot lines and stories, and who went into what and where, it was all for naught. You just undid it. You just told me that all those years, oh yeah, just unlearn what you learned. No, we're done doing that. You tell us once and you figure this shit out before we all follow along. How about that? And then we'll actually jump on board whatever bandwagon you're having us hop on board. I might be talking about something completely unrelated to Doctor Who for all you know, but that might be a tinfoil moment, and that might be against YouTube's rules or something. At first glance, Chris Chimballs seemed like a likely successor to follow Stephen Moffat as Doctor Who's showrunner. Like Moffat, Chimballs was a fan of the Doctor Who show and had written several episodes of the series after its revival in 2005. Indeed, Chibnall was effectively the head writer of the first two series of the Doctor Who spin-off Torchwood. He was also the creator of the hit mystery series Broadchurch, which starred both Jodie Whittaker and David Tennant. Here's the thing with Torchwood, though. It was an interesting show for me. It didn't feel like Doctor Who. It felt like another show, which maybe that's a compliment to the show, where it didn't feel exactly like even every spin-off of Doctor Who, I think, has felt different than Doctor Who. It felt more like the adult, edgy, grown-up Who, and Doctor Who is kind of like the, all right, we're in the Goosebumps age group. We're in the 12 to, whatever, the middle school, early middle school era. That's what Doctor Who feels like it should be. Friendly, not aimed at, but friendly enough to have that age group attracted to it, I think. And, nothing too gory, nothing too gross, nothing too adult, nothing too grown up. And when I'm coming to it and it's just boring, talky drama stuff that takes itself way too seriously, that worked maybe in Torchwood. A lot of the more grown-up themes worked there, but for Doctor Who, that's not what I'm going to Doctor Who for. And that's why the Sarah Jane Adventures, when you go and watch that, that's clearly aimed at a much younger demographic. Clearly for a much younger, kiddier. Like, that's the show for 7-year-olds. I have no problem with it, even though I'm not really a fan of the Sarah Jane Adventures. I think that's probably why it's just a little too young for me. Doctor Who, I really, you needed something more fun. For my taste, anyway. Unfortunately, while Chibnall may have had grand ideas for Doctor Who and experience working with Whittaker, he did not seem to have a clear sense of how to focus those ideas for the series, or bring the best out in Whittaker as a performer. His first season as a showrunner lacked a central storyline. See, this is what they're gonna do now. They're gonna throw the old white male under the bus, which is who all the people on Twitter should have been blaming in the first place, since they have this, oh, he's just an old white dude, sort of that little disdain in their Twitter presence, That's who they should have been focusing on in the first place instead of us. I mean, it's not our fault the show sucks. You don't have to defend it just because it's got a woman in front of the camera. You don't have to defend it just because it's diverse. You can defend it or trash it for any reason, because especially if it sucks, like this modern Lady Wham and Doctor Who era. His second series had a central storyline, perhaps in response to the fan complaints, but it was heavily steeped in the lore of the classic Who series and made a number of radical changes. Yes, it did. In the midst of all this, Jodie Whittaker rolled with the material she was given, somehow creating a character that was still recognizable as the Doctor, despite having so little chance to develop into something as revolutionary as the first female should have been. She really felt like she was doing a David Tennant impression to me, in some ways, in some places. And then she would kind of amp up the goofy faces, I'm not doing it anymore. There's some irony that in all of his success as a writer and producer, Chris Chibnall's time as Doctor Who showrunner seems to have been defined by his first public appearance as the Doctor Who aficionado in 1986 at the age of 16. Chibnall represented the Doctor Who Appreciation Society on the BBC public opinion series Open Air, criticizing the season-long Doctor Who story. Oh my god, that makes it even worse. I forgot he was criticizing that, because I don't like that one either. It goes on too long, it's too boring, and it's too hard to watch in syndication and in reruns.
Routine Doctor Who, very much what the audience is expecting. It's not really very challenging for them to watch.
So why did you do it? Why did you? And it's not so much of the season-long arc. Come on, focus. Come on, boop, focus. It's not so much the season-long arc that I had a problem with. It's just the long, boring part of it. It's the long, like, you can give it to me a little quicker. I got shit to do, we can go a little quick. I'm telling myself that too here. As an indicative, he said, Trial of a Time Lord is indicative of the declining quality of the series that has had experienced through the 80s. Well, you also didn't have Douglas Adams writing anymore by then, right? Am I correct in that? You guys remember more than me. Young Chibnall complained that the storyline, while being the first to devote an entire series to a focused tale, was highly derivative of early episodes. He singled out the final chapter of the storyline, The Ultimate Foe, in his regard, saying the episode was nothing more than quintessential The Doctor versus the Master episode, despite its revelation that the new villain, called the Valeyard was a corrupt future. Do I remember this one? Future incarnation of the Doctor. So this goes deep into the lore. See, I've never said that he's not, like, a huge fan and knows more about the lore than, especially me. There's a lot more that I forget than I remember about the early episodes, probably. I'm just going by what I expect now in the modern era. I expect it to be a little more fun. Like the fun, goosebumpsy, no more than maybe a PG-13 sort of rating. It's an adventure, you want to be swept along with this sexy, dangerous, older guy who's like, oh, he's got the twinkle in his eye and he's kind of interesting and kind of a bad boy in some ways. And it's not appropriate, but you're going to do it anyway. That is my Doctor Who. This one wasn't. And again, this goes back to my He-Man argument where every fan is going to have a different identifier. Every fan is going to have a different viewpoint. And when you have these franchises and series that go on and on and on for decades, you're going to have different experiences. And he's giving us the Doctor Who that he wanted, I suppose. But it's certainly not the Doctor Who that I wanted, and a lot of us were expecting. So, when you have such a huge, clear group of the fans who are not happy by this, you can see the ratings just drop and drop and drop and drop. The numbers don't lie. You can't deny the math in these things. If this show were less preachy, if this show were less, you're just a white dude. If this show were less bitter and vile, I think you would draw more of a fan base. If you had fewer of the fans that get on Twitter or the marketing accounts or the ones that call themselves bots, if you had fewer of those people being so combative with any of us who do complain for whatever reason, and I know you're not going to just control everybody to not argue, but if you had fewer of those sort of interactions, I totally forgot what I was talking about. We'd probably have a better show. Yada yada. Basically, they're just blaming him, which is kind of hilarious. They're basically saying, hey, you should have known better. This is exactly what we've been saying with Kevin Smith. Like, hey, you should have known better. Chris Chibnall is exactly the Kevin Smith of Doctor Who, isn't he? He's the one who went and threw a temper tantrum and complained and dissected what was wrong with it. And he is the fanboy. He is, like, these people are the fanboy man babies that they're mad at all of us for being. I am Queen Woman Baby Mecha. Follow me on Twitter and everywhere, and I'm going back to my live chat. Don't you guys go anywhere. They're blaming Chibnalls. I almost said it right. Holy crap. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye!
Coming soon to BBC America, a bunch of assholes and a TARDIS. Watch them going into the TARDIS. Watch them walking out of the TARDIS. Popping in and out of random rooms. Seriously, this is like Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd in the Waiter sketch.
Pick up pie, Roger. Your pie, sir.
Do you like action, suspense, and intrigue? Well, too bad. Watch them talk about their feelings. Well, at least there's Captain Jack. Coming to whichever popular streaming service you happen to subscribe to. Or not, who cares?